So Crockett36, there is a thread over on accessknowledge.org called the Allied Playbook. And so I've written a document that's quite long and extensive and I think comprehensive. So let me give it a shot at reading it to you and posting it on YouTube as well. United States Playbook. We do not play chess. The sides do not start off equal, and by the end of the first turn and even into the second, the ability of the Axis to destroy units within close proximity is enormous, and the Allied situation is dire from the start and gets worse. Most games played online even with bids end with Axis victory. Therefore, the principles that guide this Allied strategy playbook are: number 1, to preserve the Allied starting units; number 2, to give ground where it is hopeless or prudent; and number 3, to determine to place a battle when possible. The options we have are many and dependent. On the other hand, they are not entirely reactionary. The strategic defensive objectives remain the same. We must save London, the Atlantic, Moscow, Egypt, India, and the Pacific, in that order, in my view. The strategic objectives The strategic offensive objectives are perhaps a little different than the Axis powers, whereas they are going for either early London, middle Moscow, middle or late London, and an economy that is at parity with the United States at war. The Allies are generally not going to take Berlin or Tokyo or even Rome. Rather, the Allies are going to go for a radical dashing of the economic ambitions of the Axis and a capitulation, keeping the Germans contained on the Russian front to the gates of Moscow and no further, kicking the Italians out of Africa, keeping them out of the Middle East, containing the Japanese to a fight for China and Southeast Asia should give the edge to the Allies. Accomplishing the suppression of Axis ambitions is achieved in two ways. Destroy his ability to make war. I think I'm missing something here. Not sure what that was. So let's talk about destroying an enemy's ability to make war boils down to economics. Economics in this game is represented on the board by cash values of the territories and the convoy zones on the map. In order to reduce your opponent's income, you can do one of three things: take possession of his territories, disrupt his convoys, and strategically bomb his factories. Conversely, it means not losing your own territories to the aggressors. These factors determine our strategic offensive objectives. Destroying an enemy's ability to make war by disrupting his convoys can be a devastating strategy. In fact, in several sea zones on the map, it is catastrophic if done in numbers. Parking your navies in the Sea of Japan and in Sea Zone 97 to the east of Rome are prime examples of this endgame tactic. Likewise, two strategic bombers will shut down minor factories and cost the enemy double to restore them to full capacity. Five bombers will almost guarantee shutting down a major factory. Losses will be high and costly to the ally who pursues this course of action, but worth it. Beware that Germany has two major factories, so he can ignore the loss of one of them. Also be aware that Germany itself cannot be reached from London. A point in Scandinavia or Russia must be secured or maintained in order to thoroughly execute the strategy against the Huns. In the east, you must get very close to the island of Japan in order to bomb her. Iwo Jima or Soviet Far East seem the best candidates. Some have even suggested Korea. Allied planes and tactical fighters can reinforce Korea from Hawaii if the Soviets were to capture Korea. A strategy that keeps the Russians on the east coast of Russia must be used in coordination with these plans. Be careful of the kamikazes. You can non-combat into a K-zone without triggering a wrath. An attack on a navy in Sea Zone 6 with subs and air will also not provoke the kamikazes. Having discussed how to destroy the enemy's ability to make war, we move on to how to eliminate units on the board. How to do this with the resources on the board in a limited time before a catastrophe like the fall of London or Moscow or Bombay occurs is the crux of the game. Historically, it was agreed upon by the Allies that stopping Germany took primacy over the stopping Japan. Victor Davis Hansen says that for all that kind of talk, a bifurcation developed that the West Coast produced goods for the Pacific War and the East Coast produced goods for the European theater. Unfortunately, for playability's sake, the U.S. economy is not correctly represented. When you read VDH, there's a common refrain. America produced more blank than all the other combatants combined. Obviously, this is not our situation. Therefore, kill Japan strategy or kill Germany first strategies have been developed. I prefer the KJF, and it was the agreed upon Allied strategy historically. The big question is, can I pop Germany's bubble before Japan expands beyond control? This question has validity. However, mathematically it is nonsensical. If Japan's economy grows to 70 or 80, it would still be dwarfed by the combined Allied income that would result from the shriveling of the German Reich. In light of these encouraging thoughts, let's look at KJF strategies. I have mentioned bombing Japan from either Iwo Jima or Soviet Far East. This can be done in two ways. Russian troops can move to SFE or be reinforced with American fighters and troops. This could be done very early in the game, even T1, assuming a J1 attack. Alternatively, the Russians can be gathered in Sakha on T1, and a subsequent move to Soviet Far East could be arranged by T3 with impressive results. Alternatively, an Iwo Jima assault would need to be a tour de force. It might take 2 or 3 rounds of Navy and air builds before you could attempt it. If one takes the same meat grinder approach as seen on the Eastern Front, U.S. waves of ships cannot help but overcome the Japanese. You must be willing to bleed. A substantial number of subs in your fleet can directly impact the enemy's capital ships. Bombers can be used against the fleet and turn around and impact the struggle for Eurasia. Another strong option for the American player executing a KJF strategy is to begin a naval arms race with the Japanese. This can have an indirect effect on Eurasia. The fear of losing possession of Sea Zone 6 will motivate the Japanese to keep up. Another option is to make a move on the Money Islands. This can be effected by either securing the Caroline Islands or traveling to Queensland and then springing into action. There is a great deal of fear surrounding the strategy. The loss of a fleet would be understandably discouraging. However, to draw the bulk of the enemy's fleet so far out of position is, in itself, 2 turns from Sea Zone 6, a feat worth considering, especially if there is a second, albeit smaller, fleet threatening the Japanese homeland. You can afford this. He can too, but not without injuring his continental ambitions. It should also be noted that, should America be left out of the war until turn 4, a great deal of marshalling and posturing can be done far away from the U.S. coast that will influence the enemy's decision-making, drawing his attention away from Bombay. A floating bridge strategy in the Pacific is difficult for several reasons, but not without merit. Naval superiority is the most obvious challenge. I have mentioned the value of capturing the Caroline Islands. The most tantalizing of options might be a 12 transport shot between North America and Russia. 4 would leave San Fran and go to Soviet Far East, 4 from Alaska to Sea Zone 1, 4 from Sea Zone 1 to San Fran. The drawback is the land units have so much ground to cover before they effect serious change. It should be noted, however, that this must draw the enemy's eye north, potentially saving Indian lives. A naval base in Alaska would then threaten the Japanese homeland. An air base there would make any attempt to destroy the shot costly, though the Soviet Far East transports are vulnerable. So that's what I'm going to put out today, the KJF portion of the U.S. playbook. All right, play on, guys. Out.